Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And our Rockies have just won a World Series a few weeks ago, second in franchise history, second in the past 3 seasons. And we've made it to the start of free agency. Unfortunately, our team budget was cut by $14 million after winning the championship, and we have very limited financial flexibility for this offseason, which is likely to get even less financially flexible. We made a qualifying offer to Marcelo Meyer that was declined by our longtime second baseman, and we're hoping that he gets a big offer to join somebody else, which will result in a compensatory pick for us in next year's draft that we'll have to reserve even more money for. So only have about $1.6 million to spend in free agency, and we have made one offer. This was a suggestion that Hold Door made, and completely agree with going after Bryce Rayner. 28-year-old who can play multiple infield positions. Presumably we would try to get him a little more versatile during spring training. But a solid infielder, decent speed, and a competent-ish major league hitter. The negatives are he's fragile physically and he's got a low work ethic. But this is still a 28-year-old who is a good defensive infielder, and he's basically been a league average offensive player over the course of parts of 6 seasons in Detroit. And supposedly he's only looking for $1.5 million a year. We are still trying to find a better bargain than that. You can see we've offered him $1.35 million for this upcoming season. We've also made some minor league contract offers to some experienced players trying to fill out our upper levels of our organization. But outside of Rayner, I think it's unlikely that we're going to really have the money to do much of anything in free agency. But fortunately, as I noted, we're the defending World Series champions. We won 95 games in the regular season last year. And although we're going to have some departures this offseason, Meyer perhaps first and foremost among them, although we did trade away our longtime catcher, Drew Romo, as well. And we'll be losing a longtime starting pitcher in Isaiah Shader. Think that the team that we have should be pretty competitive next year. We did make the trade for Mr. Pack Jr. to take over as our center fielder when we moved on from our old center fielder, Dean West. So feeling pretty good about the team right now, but not expecting to be particularly active in these early stages of free agency. We'll see what happens with Rayner. Other than that, I think the primary focus for this episode is going to be to hopefully find out where Meyer ends up and what we need to do perhaps in terms of lowering our scouting and player development budgets to put enough money away to sign a compensatory pick next year, particularly if it ends up being a supplemental first rounder, which would be the most attractive option for us in terms of the talent that we might be able to acquire, but would also be the most expensive option in what that player would be making in terms of their slot. And other than hopefully simming up through the Rule 5 draft and then the IAFA pool, we'll hopefully take a look at the international amateur free agent class at the end of this episode and turn things over to our loyal viewers, our worldwide scouting department, to perhaps give us some suggestions on what to do in the IAFA pool this year. And we've simmed ahead a little over a week, gotten some feedback from Rayner, claims to have an offer from Los Angeles in addition to ourselves plus San Diego, says he's looking for a little more money than we had offered him. Claims that he's got a $1.4 million offer and he's looking for $1.46 million. We'll offer him $1.45 million for next year and see what he has to say. One thing I did not mention about Rayner is that he actually still has 2 option years left. Obviously, wouldn't be ideal to be spending close to $1.5 million on a player, given how limited our financial resources are, and have him in AAA. But if the way that the development lab and the off season go, if he's for some reason not one of our 6 best infielders, there would be an opportunity to put him in AAA, although that probably would not be the plan if we bring him on board. And we've simmed ahead to the Rule 5 draft. Rayner did respond to our last offer, says that we're in the lead, but he has not signed with us yet. You can see we'll have the 26th pick here in the Rule 5 draft. We do have room on the 40-man roster, but given how good our team is at this point, not anticipating that we're going to be selecting many players today. And it ended up being a very uneventful Rule 5 draft. We did not pick any players. The pool was relatively sparse, at least compared to the level of talent that we have on our team. But fortunately, we did not lose any players either. So a very unexciting Rule 5 draft for our squad here in 2033. And we've made it to just about the midway point of our journey for some of our top prospects and our top young players through the development lab. Unfortunately, only 2 guys having programs that indicate they would be successful at this point if things were to end now. Fortunately, we've still got another 2 months, but Justin Abbott is our scout. Mike Gerard is frustrated with his bat speed program. Bernie Barrera frustrated with his movement program. Brian Stoops frustrated with his control program. Dervy Mahez, unfortunately, frustrated with his bat speed program. Kevin Roberts Jr. frustrated with his contact program. And Dan Patterson, the youngster who's the top-ranked prospect in our organization, really struggling with increasing his pitch movement, which is disappointing. Positively, Leo Martinez, our outstanding number 2 starter, is on track with his pitch movement program. And Phil Dingwell, the second-rated prospect in our organization, is excelling with his plate discipline program. Hopefully things will get better over the second half of the programs. Looks like Kevin Roberts in contact and Mike Gerard in bat speed are not far off from being on track. And Dan Patterson is not too far from at least hopefully getting to a point where he won't regress at all. So we are going to keep things moving with those programs and hope for a little more success over the next 2+ months. And the calendar is flipped to the new year, and we do finally get Bryce Rainier signed. So it looks like he's wrecked physically now that we know more about him, so that could be part of the reason why there wasn't a lot of demand for him. But still a good fielder. He's been a productive offensive player and has a little speed on the base paths. I think he could certainly be a solid addition to our team as a utility infielder next year, left-handed bat off the bench, and someone who could certainly capably handle multiple positions in the infield if we were to have some injuries or ineffectiveness with the presumed starters. So glad to have him on board for just $1.45 million for next year. And we're just a few days away from the IAFA period, continuing to scout aggressively some of the players that we'll be hopefully considering and having an opportunity to sign. But Marcelo Meyer has officially signed away from us. Overall, the fan interest decreases noticeably, but it's still actually at a 92. So no matter what we've done positive and negatively this past offseason, fan interest has just remained pegged at that level, regardless of the feedback that we've gotten. Meyer, supplemental first-round pick, so probably a reasonably long contract and a reasonably valuable contract. Actually, less money than I would have thought. It is for 6 years, though, averaging less than $10 million a year with our division rival San Francisco Giants. Meyer's been good for us over the years, but he is fragile physically. He's in his 30s. Certainly will miss the glove, and certainly will miss the speed, and will miss the bat as well. But felt like it was time to move on, and really happy that we provided him with that QO, because that will mean a supplemental first-round pick in our future. Don't know exactly how we're going to pay for it at this point, because when we do think about things, we've got only about $500,000 to spend at this point. We have tweaked scouting down a bit and player development up a bit in the tentative budgets for next year, but that's still all subject to change. But when we think about player development now, we also want to come up with about another $3 million in the pool, given that he's going to have a relatively high slot level for that supplemental first round pick. So it's not inconceivable that we might get a bump from ownership when the preseason begins in a few weeks. That would be great if it happens. Won't find out until the next episode, but certainly have some more decisions to make as far as our spending over the coming weeks and months as we get closer to the beginning of the 2034 season. And we've simmed ahead another week or so to the start of the international amateur free agent signing period, and this is where we will finish this relatively brief episode, when we can stop at a point where we're looking for some specific feedback from the Worldwide Scouting Department. We like to do that, and we'll highlight the 10 players that we have had in our camp most recently. We are down to the minimum $4.75 million to spend this year. So if there is a player that we really want and fall in love with, given that there's a lot of teams that can outspend us, the theory is probably, if there's someone we really love, to just offer them the whole $4.75 million right at the start and try to lock them up quickly and aggressively. Don't think any pitchers are going to meet that criteria. We've actually been actively scouting a couple of starting pitchers with lower demands, although when you look at their profiles, you'll understand why they might not be right at the top of our list. Julian Balbuena, 17-year-old left-hander out of the Dominican, low leadership, extreme development risk, decent stamina, decent at holding on runners, but we really do question whether he's really going to ultimately have major league stuff, even though we do think his movement and his control could both be above average. Bill Gallegos, looking for a little more at $900,000. Don't love the low adaptability and work ethic, but he is a more talented pitcher in terms of his stuff. I think that he can reach the high 90s in terms of his velocity, potentially have a 4-pitch arsenal, including a good fastball, and think that his stuff and his movement can both be about major league average, to go with slightly above average major league control. Old-mate Gallegos, as we noted, looking for $900K. Balbuena looking for $800K. Don't think that either of these guys are going to be our top priority as the IAFA period begins. But depending on what happens, if we end up going for a more diversified class with a lot of players involved, it's certainly not inconceivable that we could end up putting in a bid on either or both of those guys. The higher-end talent this year is definitely in the position players, at least when we think about player ceilings and what our scout thinks at this point. 8 players that we've had in camp most recently. 4 of them are infielders, all listed as shortstop, and 4 of them are outfielders. We'll start out with the infielders. Edgar Calderon, 17-year-old, looking for $3 million. Really like the 65 infield range. He's pretty competent with his other defensive ratings. Decent speed and a bat that looks like, if he reaches his full potential, could certainly be a usable major league bat. Not a ton of home run power, but think he could be slightly above average in contact, gap power, and eye. Left-handed hitting middle infielder with good range, decent speed, and a bat that doesn't look horrible if he reaches his full potential is certainly an interesting guy to think about. The other three infielders, shortstop Jose Jojo Izaguirre, not quite as interesting defensively, does have high work ethic and adaptability, and a very interesting potential glove for a middle infielder. We think his contact, his gap power, and his eye could all be well above average. Only average home run power, and with below average speed, the gap power is wasted a bit. But still think that Izaguirre is a pretty interesting player to consider. He's looking for a little more, $3.4 million. Two other infielders, both listed as shortstops, that also have an 80 ceiling, according to our scout. Carlos Davila, looking for $3.2 million. The 16-year-old, high adaptability, work ethic, and baseball IQ. Those are all really important. Looks like a pretty solid-looking fielder in the infield who could also play a corner outfield position. Outstanding speed, although his base running instincts aren't particularly strong right now, and a bat that we think could have outstanding contact, world-class gap power, and a really good eye to go with average home run power. Bare barrel Davila, certainly to me, on a first glance of these latest ratings for the players, the most interesting of the guys that we've spoken with or that we've looked at thus far when we consider his potential, his personality. But we're not done yet. Tomás Araya, also known as Cy, infielder prospect with a high work ethic and baseball IQ. Not the greatest speed. His error and his turn 2 ratings, both a little below average, but potentially outstanding home run power and eye to go with decent contact and gap power. Looking for $2.8 million, a little bit less. But there are 4 outfielders we wanted to talk about as well. Rafael Hernandez, a left fielder with high adaptability and baseball IQ. Speed is not good. The fielding is not good, but going to draw a ton of walks, and we think his contact, gap power, and home run power can all be a bit above average to reasonably well above average in terms of his home run power if the switch hitting outfielder, also known as Big Mike, reaches his full potential. He's looking for $2.6 million. $2.4 million demand from right fielder David Zelaya. Looks like a corner outfield type, high loyalty, work ethic, low financial ambition, decent speed. The bat is obviously the attractive feature for the left-handed hitting Stormy Valaya, slightly above average contact, and we think the gap power, home run power, and the eye could all be absolutely outstanding if Stormy reaches his full potential. And 2 other outfielders, Gilberto Grandos, sloppy, a little bit better defensively than some of the other outfielders we've talked about, like the high adaptability and work ethic. Another guy whose contact looks like it can be a little bit above average, with the gap power, the home run power, and the eye all at a very high level if he reaches his full potential. Grandos looking for $2.8 million. And last, $2.4 million demand from the left fielder, Willie Ariola. Another very interesting looking bat. His contact, if he reaches his full potential, even better than a couple of those other outfielders that we've talked about, with potentially outstanding gap power, home run power, and eye. Speed not exceptional and doesn't look like a great defensive player, but if he comes close to reaching the potential with that bat, not going to be too concerned about his defense. Unfortunately, at 6'1" with some pretty awful infield ratings, probably not a practical guy to play at first base, although could do it if we had it to, because he's really not a practical left fielder or right fielder either with the skills that he has right now. going to need to get lucky with some defensive improvement from V-Mart, or just be content that if he reaches his full potential, could be an incredible DH for you for a decade and a half or so. I think when I think very initially about the top prospects, the left fielder V-Mart Arriola at $2.4 million, the center fielder Gilberto Grandos, very similar profile, and then the third guy with a very similar profile as well, the right fielder David Zelaya, all similar potential bats, all looking for similar-ish money, 2.4, 2.8, and $2.4 million. I think my inclination is probably Davia, a little further along with the gap power and the void strikeout ratings in particular, particularly given that he's not even 17 years old yet. The personality has got 3 very important traits with positive ratings, and think he could be a pretty solid defensive player with a very interesting bat and some really good speed, good bunting skills for what that's worth. Medium development risk for Bare Barrel Davia, medium development risk for Arriola, medium development risk for Gilberto Grandos, and medium development risk for David Zelaya. I think my initial thought on this, and this is just my initial thought, and I'm certainly open to suggestions, probably to offer every penny we have available to Davia, $4.75 million, try to get him locked up. And if we don't get him locked up, my hope would be that perhaps an Arriola, a Grandos, or a Zelaya is still around, and we could maybe make a maximum bid to any of those guys whose bats we think could be very effective. That's the initial plan, but I am obviously open to input, open to suggestions. I don't always stubbornly refuse to change my mind, and I do always at least think about the feedback that the Worldwide Scouting Department gives me. So appreciate any thoughts on what you might do with this IAFA pool. Definitely a situation we haven't been in almost a decade at this point, with the minimum $4.75 million to spend. So there certainly could be some other directions to go if we didn't want to spend it all in one place. But right now, as I think about this pool, again, early stages, I'll be spending time before the next episode thinking more about this myself and considering your thoughts and recommendations. But Davia is the direction that I would be inclined to go right now. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.